Now, sometimes reintegrating ex-offenders into society poses a significant global challenge. Yet, it's fundamental to reducing. Nevertheless, there is research, punity, exploring public perceptions and attitudes towards ex-offenders and their reintegration into the society and into Nigeria as a whole. Now, this study makes an original contribution, drawing on a mixed method approach on dyspene by positives and expelology to understand attitude towards ex-offenders. Now, the reintegration and whether there is a positive association between the level of education and the likelihood of accepting ex-offenders into our society. Now, research shows that a total of 1,187 respondents completed survey questionnaires from states representing Nigerians' main geopolitical zones affected by conflict. Now, quantitative data were analyzed using descriptive statistics and Spearman's rank coalition and coefficients. These individuals who have transformed from being security threats to positive contributors in the society. You're welcome to Insight today. I am Jumai Manson. I'm being joined by Mr. Dominic Bioku, a political analyst. Stay tuned, the program continues shortly. You're welcome back, and if you're just tuning in, this is Insight Today on Global Television, and we're looking at post-prison terms and, of course, is reinstating ex-offenders in our society, which poses a significant global challenge, but at the same time fundamental to reducing issues that are on ground by these ex-offenders. Now, nevertheless, of course, there's a research that explores this particular perception and attitude towards ex-offenders. Looking at it critically, when you see an ex-offender, what comes to mind? The fear of the kind of crime or the levity of crime that individual must have committed when it comes to rape, when it comes to terrorism, when it comes to killing, when it comes to criminality beyond expression. You know, the fear of an ex-offender, but someone that has gone into the bars of prison, coming out in that reformation, coming out with a genuine repentance. How do we perceive these ex-offenders? Do we open our arms and accept them, not forgetting that they have family and friends who will forever love them and accept them? But the society in which they live in, have a different perception when it comes to ex-offenders. Now, in respect to giving of jobs, in respect to association in the society. Now, let's take a deep look. These ex-offenders, do you think there are links that got them into the bars of prison? They are still in touch with these links, taking them with all of this stigmatization and frustration, allowing them to go back into the crimes in which they decided to leave behind, and also the crimes that made them serve a particular time in jail. Now, we're going to be looking at this critically and trying to understand what these ex-offenders go through in the society, how the society has actually portrayed them, the fear you and I have when it comes to an ex-offender. Yes, we have those fears. When you see them, you want to run away, not giving them a chance to express themselves or giving them a chance when it comes to job and employment. Like I said, I will be joined by Mr. Dominic Bioku. He is a political analyst and, of course, a very concerned Nigeria, patriotic Nigeria, who will be lending his voice on this particular topic, looking at the reinstating of ex-offenders and how they are in our society. All right, let's quickly go on a quick break and ensure Mr. Dominic Bioku has joined us. Don't go anywhere. Inside Today continues shortly. All right, you're welcome back to Inside Today. And like I said, I'm being joined by Mr. Dominic Bioku. He is a political analyst and a concerned Nigerian and a patriotic Nigerian at the same time. Mr. Dominic, you're welcome to Inside Today. Hello? Mr. Dominic Bioku, are you there? Hello, Mr. Dominic, are you here? All right, if you can hear me, I can barely hear you. So if you can just increase the volume of your PC or phone that you're using so that we can communicate. So we'll be looking at reinstating ex-offenders in our society. Like I've mentioned a few when it comes to the acceptance, the fear, the trust behind it. Not forgetting that these ex-offenders, they have family and friends who love them, who have that open arm of acceptance. But let's look at the society as a whole. Does society have that levity of extension of opening our arms to ex-offenders without having that stigma behind an individual who has offended in our society? Remember, when I say ex-offenders, I mean those who have committed criminal menace in the society, like killing, like rape, like stealing from the bank, committing murder, fraudsters, all of these things in combined. Now, looking at ex-offenders who have done a lot of heinous things in our society. Now, going into prison, serving the jail term, and then coming back, wiping the slate clean, and coming back with this new attitude of change, remorse, and repentance. Now, looking at how the society embraces this sort of people, or will I say this set of people, how does society perceive them? How does society view them when it comes to ex-offenders? And of course, I am now being joined by Mr. Dominic Bioku. He is a political analyst and, of course, a concerned and patriotic Nigerian. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, ma.
Oh, good afternoon, Mr. Dominic. Thank you for being a part of Inside Today. But I can't see you.
I'm having issues. Okay.
Okay.
I think you can see me
Oh,
now.
oh my goodness, I can see you, Mr. Dominic. It's great thank you for being a part of the program. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
All right, now we're talking about ex-offenders. Now, looking at it critically, we understand the stigma in which it portrays the fears of individual. I was speaking to someone and I said, when you see an ex-offender, the fear that comes into mind, understanding that there's this levity of the crimes in which they've committed when it comes to rape, when it comes to terrorizing the society, when it comes to murder, when it comes to bankruptcy, when it comes to fraudulent activity, that menace in the society. Now, what challenges do you think these ex-offenders face in our present society?
Thank you once again for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
You're welcome.
I There are always consequences to everything that we do. There are consequences, and it's natural for humans to feel um, threatened. Let me use the word threatened by ex-offenders. Yes, naturally, when you see them, there's more like you have a relapse of what these people, what they were. If, for example, if you have been somebody who is a victim to these people, whenever you see them, that stigma, that fear will always come up. So it's natural for the society itself to feel that way. But of course, being human, one need to be very careful. So I see that as the consequences when these ex-offenders suddenly show up again. You need to now start trading with care with them. Yes, you cannot just open your arms to these people because you don't know yet what kind of reform they must have. Have they changed from who they were? You can't say that, but it's a natural thing that every human being, knowing you, somebody has been involved in some set of ungodly acts, for those people to accept them immediately.
All right, looking at these ex-offenders, people will say they find it hard relating with individuals in society when it comes to employment opportunities, when it comes to trust. Some of these people get that stigmatization when it comes to trusting them to deliver, when it comes to knowing at the back of the mind that this person has committed before, he or she is an ex-offender, he has been in the four walls of prison. So trusting in that aspect is really, really challenging when it comes to these ex-offenders. And of course, that is a proxy that allows them to go back to committing these heinous activities. Now, would you blame an ex-offender who comes up and says, please employ me, I am changed, I have repented, I am now, I've served the punishment of law? Would you blame an ex-offender who goes back to that act that got him into prison again due to the stigmatization and the distrust of society? Would you blame that individual?
One thing I know, let me say this: it is up to you. Change does not come from the outside. Change comes from the inside. I have to make up my mind. For example, I'm an ex-offender. I paid the price for it. I must accept it first. That look, where I found myself was my making. It's not the making of, okay, of course, we'll talk about peer pressure. For example, it had to do with the youth or societal pressure, whichever direction you want to view it from. But the choices that we make, as I said earlier, there are consequences. Now, if I must have learned a lesson. If I don't learn any lesson from my past mistakes, and I say, okay, because I came out from, I have served my term, and now I am back, and the society is not accepting me, it is behooving on me to go back and commit the same crime, then that is not the society fault, but my fault. I must make a bold step to say, let the yesterday go and let me move on. Yes, consequences are there. But I strongly believe that if I must have learned a lesson, it has cost me so much. For example, family and friends, jobs. There are a lot of things that goes with these things. When you got yourself involved, you know you have lost so much. That should be like a stepping stone for you, so to speak, to make you look. I was into this act, and look at where it took me. So it is up to me to say no, I won't. So I shouldn't go back. I will blame the ex-offender if he goes back. That's his call. It is his call.
But Mr.
Nobody.
Dominic, but sir, Mr. Dominic, now for you that says you will blame the ex-offender if he or she goes back. But the society is not making it easy for the ex-offender to find a landing ground to become a better person. The stigmatization, the punches here and there, the disdain, the irritation from individuals is not making life easy. And the fastest way to make ends meet is to go back to what he found appealing and accepting. So would you actually blame an ex-offender?
I'm saying this. You don't blame the society. Do you know the stigmatization I feel if I'm a victim? For example, I'm a victim to an ex-offender. And you see, let's put ourselves in the shoes of victims of these ex-offenders. Sometimes psychologically, I too that is trying to accept this person back from this ex-offender, there is always this relapse on my part. I still have to recall the yesterday.
Of course.
It is there. So if I am an ex-offender, for example, I have to build a wall of paying the consequences of the things I have done. I don't have to blame anybody. The worst case scenario I will do, I will leave that environment whereby I am known. If people knew me for such acts and in that environment, it's going to take the message of God for these people to accept you immediately. I'm not saying it's not going to be possible. It is possible that they might accept you, but it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while. So you, as your ex-offender, you must accept the fact that, look, these people are not coming to accept me with their open arms. I've offended them. They're not the ones that offended me. So if I know that, that means I have to prepare my mind to accept whatsoever they throw at me and try as much as I can in that community. I must be there to try to be a people look, people read us, people see us, our actions, inactions, way of life. They see every day our everyday activities. People will speak and say, no, this person has changed. Some people say, yes, it's not who he used to be. Even when people are being careful with him, they will notice there's a change. So if, as an ex-offender, if I cannot stay with the heat around that area, I better leave. But not going back into that act that first and foremost ruined me in the first place. So I should either I put up with the situation I'm finding myself, or I move out of such environment where people knew me for who I was. Back. Don't go back.
Well said. And to add again, if the person actually goes back, that means he wasn't repentant. Maybe he wasn't remorse for what he had done before. Now, what do you think?
Absolutely, ma. Absolutely.
Now, what factors do you think influence an ex-offender's decision to change and be positive and to become a positive influence in society? Is it the reform that happened, or the time he spent in prison, or the fact that he was deprived from, I've never been to the prison walls, but I've heard experiences of people say that it's very hard to see the sun, the daylight. The person is constrained to one place. So what do you think must have influenced the decision of the ex-offender to change and become a positive influence, trying to be a positive influence in our society?
Let me give you a personal experience. If you've never walked the path of people, you will not really understand what they have been through. As a teenager, I've been to prison for a filthy reason. When I got there, I was already served for a 3.5 years sentence and a bail, of course. Of course, my parents came. I was just out of secondary school then for a reason. Let me keep it up. But what I'm trying to say is that When you go there, when you see things that happen, you accept you are somebody who is not really willing to change. When you find yourself in such a confinement, you see, life will deal to you, solitude on its own. Solitude on its own will teach you some lessons of life. If if you go in there, you discover what you have lost. I'm talking about your freedom.
And
And
time.
of course, the correctional system. Just imagine a teenager going to prison and just out of secondary school, going to do 3.5 years. He got there and he was in the midst of hardened criminals. I need not to be told that my thought factor about life generally must change. Yes, the government, if you look at the correctional services, for example, one of the primary things they do is to go and reform you if you want to. As I've said earlier, I said, you see, it's up to you to tell yourself what I want to become.
Exactly.
It is up to you. You see, the human will is so strong. It is devoid of what anybody thinks. It is what you think. What am I capable of doing? That will push you or propel you to be better. If you go to yourself in the correctional center, solitude, and you start thinking, and you want to think correct and think right, I tell you, you are going to come out of that place a more better person. That is, if you want to, as we said earlier,
No,
that the
Mr.
change must
Dominic.
begin with you.
Mr. Dominic,
Yes.
I want to ask a question. You know, someone said, when I did the research about ex-offenders, someone says, if you do not make up your mind, you go into the correctional center and you become harder than what you were before. When you come out, it's a different ball game. You see people differently. Your skin is hard. You become hard. That is for those that have that focus and understand that time has been wasted. The person's freedom has been wasted. But for some that do not even care, that have nothing to look at or anything to hope for, what experience do you think they will have and come out with after serving their terms?
I don't really think there's always a hope. You know, there's always hope. The hope is that you should understand that, look, we are still going back to that same decisions that we take, that we make. There's always a hope. There's always an option. Nobody has said there's never an option. There's always an option. It's a case of good and bad. It's about darkness, it's about light, it's about day and night. There is always an option. But the journey must start within you.
Exactly.
There is a hope, as I said earlier. If you need to live, as I said, you must leave that environment. If of course, where you find yourself, get out of the place, go somewhere. There's always a hope. I know there's always hope, because the stigmatization alone that you suffer, if you are not man enough to surmount it on its own, that will generally pull you down. That's when you will say there's no hope. But as long as you've taken that step, that look, I want to make a better me.
Exactly.
I want to be a better me. Look, there is always a hope. There's always a hope.
I like
It's
that.
just up to you to take it.
I completely understand. Now let's look at government. Government in all of these, when it comes to the courts, putting the offenders behind bars and all of that. Now, do you think the government has played a part in their motivations and the journey in which they underwent in the correctional center, bringing them out, serving that jail term, and then coming out, becoming an ex-offender and becoming a positive individual in society? What role in that transition do you think the government has played in all of this?
I think the correctional centers, as the name implies, then it was Nigerian Prison Service. Of course, they changed the name to correctional, which I think is the right word. These correctional centers are supposed to correct some anomalies.
Yes.
The other day, in one of those national stations, I'm not going to name them, there's a man who went there and he was doing his PhD or thereabouts through the National Open University. You see, that man took a bold step. And thank God the government allows it. So those are the incentives. If you are willing, the government already put incentives on the ground. It still comes to what I'm saying, that these people, there's an option for you. There's hope. It is up to you to take the bull by the horn and say, no, I'm not going to remain like this. I'm not going to leave this place the way I came. And the government sees that you are willing, they will always make. The correctional center has those facilities, though we cannot compare these things to developed nations already.
Of course.
We cannot do that. But let's come to our own climb, our own resources. We see that the government has, except of course maybe the people managing the system itself, they are abusing it. But outside that, the system itself is being fashioned to take care or change the while they are there. Just like what I said earlier, a man who went into the second degree in the prison via the open, and some people write JAMB, wrote WAEC in these open universities, even in prison, in solitude. So the government has put in so much facilities on the ground, but it's up to the inmates or the inmates now to take those steps that they want to make themselves better, either formally or informally. Absolutely.
No, Mr. Dominic, I mentioned something. I said the perception that we in the society we have about these individuals, like I said, the fear alone, realizing that this person has committed a crime. Some you're aware, some you're not aware. Now, what do you think? What are the society perception of these ex-offenders? Being realistic. I have seen some who walk on the streets. I have seen some who still are ex-offenders. They still take drugs, and the fear alone, not even wanting to associate. That's one. What do you think are the perception of these individuals in our society that we find ourselves?
Away from that fact, people will always become weary of you, but as I said earlier, people watch you. It's a natural thing that people watch you. After you must have served your terms and you're out, they will still be weary of you. They will still be weary of you. It's a natural human thing. But I'm saying this, that while they are being careful, they are also watchful. I've said that. While they are being careful, changed. They are watchful. They are watchful. They want to see. They are waiting. And you'll be baffled. These same people that you think they are being careful, they will be the same people who are going to speak praise. No, he's no more like this. The same people, because they must have the time. The time frame is not in our hands. The time frame is not in our hands. The people watch you, and as they are watching you, they will be taking record of what you are doing. Yes, for if an ex-offender, you too should understand it, that you don't need to get yourself, beat up over it. You should deal with it. You should tell yourself, this is the consequences I'm facing for what I've done. But I want to open a new chapter in my life. I want to see people to see me from a different limelight. Yes, I might not go and ask them for anything, but my day-to-day activities, for example, will speak volume for me. We often said that action speaks louder than words. People will see you and say, no, this person has changed. And the same people, I tell you, will speak for you when the time comes. So on your part, don't blame the society. It's a natural thing. The society will behave that way. The society will act that way. But on my own part, being the ex convict or whoever, what am I doing to paint a different perspective or a different picture from who these people used to know me?
Exactly.
It's in my hands. So it is up to me to deal with the situation I found myself and deal with it wholeheartedly. Despite the fact that the community, whatever society is thinking, is not my business. I have offended them. As a matter of fact, I owe them apologies. I owe them apology. I should walk up to it to as much as I can. But my actions will speak. Let my action speak and let people
Speak
see
volume.
a new me. And with that, it will take away that wrong perception. That wrong perception of what people are. Look, it's not even a wrong, it's a fact. But with time, they said time heals all wounds.
Yes,
People
it
will now
does.
look, they will look outside the box now and say, this person must have become a different person entirely.
I like that analyst. I really like that, Mr. Dominic. Now, how do you think society can support an ex-offender who has turned a new leaf? Now, for someone who he didn't have to tell you that, okay, I'm a changed person. I've changed. I'm now better. I've served my jail. I've served the term. And you genuinely see that remorse, that repentance from this individual. Now, how can the society come together to support an ex-offender who has really changed and turned a new leaf?
Once the society accepts you first, they will go all out. They will go all out to be of help to you. Except, of course, the society that don't really want to see people grow. But one thing I know is that once the society accepts you and see that, yes, this person has changed, though, and we can do something about it when this person comes for our help, they will always be there. It can be, it could be words of encouragement. It could be helping you to run a business financially. But first and foremost, they must accept you psychologically to say, okay, this person has changed. And look, the society, in as much as society can be so cruel, but let me tell you something, society is also forgiving. You see, it is often said that a devil you know is better than a devil you don't know. If you know this person has become a better person, the society is there, willing, able to be of help to see that such a person can change. And you can do that, as I said, either through training or financial assistance to run a business. Anything that you can do to elevate this person's present state, the society is willing to do that. So the society can just help in so many ways that as long as the society has accepted you, I know the society, I think the society should be able to stand by you as long as they see you that you are a changed person.
Now, you spoke about trainings. Now, what type of vocational training programs do you think should be available to ex-offenders that they can actually engage and go into when it comes to when they come out into the society? Because the government needs to play a role. If they've given a particular term of maybe 2 years and the ex-offender, the offender has served and is now an ex-offender, we need vocational trainings to help them kickstart their lives, because some of them must have lost everything. Some of them must have been the black sheep of their family, and the family has cut them off. So what vocational training programs should be made available to ex-offenders?
First and foremost, for me to engage into any vocational, I must have interest. There must be interest. You need to, okay, what do you really want to do? Do you have interest in certain vocational training? Of course, you have to lay the courses or whatsoever those vocational trainings. Which one do you want? You must first have interaction with, more like, to me, a counseling. Now, what can you do? Or what do you think you have this interest in? Then when the person tells you, okay, I can do this, then what do? You now bring him in. It is, you don't force anybody into any vocation that the person is not interested in. First and foremost, the person mind won't be there. The interest needs to come in first. And once there's interest, then this person can be able to partake in whatsoever vocation he is interested, and the community or the government will now help him to succeed. The bottom line first is that the person must show interest too, and let the person make his or her choice of what she or he wants to be involved in. That already has created this interest, and it will help the person to expedite the time frame for the person to acquire the knowledge. There are a lot of things that anybody can do. Thank God today we are not talking about those days when you talk about vocational stuffs. It ends mostly with we talk about mostly for informal educations,
Yeah,
maybe
true.
uh,
Yes.
farming. Yes, but today you can go through other things, even repairing of phones. You don't need much; it's just knowledge and also
Very true.
other
Very
things that
true. Very true.
interest first. There must be interest.
Now let's look at the government. Now, well, of course, we know when an offender serves his term, and then comes out becomes an ex-offender. Now, the government, we do not have all of these monitors or surveillance to keep a tab on these ex-offenders to ensure that they have turned a new leaf. But you know what? Let's quickly go on a quick break, Mr. Dominic. Please, you have to rejoin on the Zoom so I can ask you two more questions before we wrap up the program. Thank you so much for being a part of it. But stay tuned. We'll rejoin back later on. Let's quickly go on a quick break. Inside Today continues shortly. Don't go anywhere. All right, you're welcome back. And if you're just tuning in, this is Inside Today. And we're looking at a very sensitive issue. It's called post-prison terms, reinstating ex-offenders. Now, Mr. Dominic Boku has spoken a lot when it comes to this particular issue at hand, talking about an ex-offender having interest when it comes to vocational skills, having that remorse to understand that, yes, there will be stigmatization in the society, but you have to understand that you were once an offender, but now that you are an ex-offender, you must go through all of these things to prove a point that you have changed, you are a better person, so that the society can open their arms of acceptance to you. Now, he spoke about a lot of things when it comes to vocational training, which I've mentioned, the kind of jobs, going back to school, and how the society can actually support an ex-offender who have genuinely turned a new leaf, and then also looking at the roles the government is playing in all of these, their motivations and the journey these ex-offenders went through to come out to become a better individual in the society, and then still looking at factors, the experience that influence the decision to change and become a positive individual in the society, and of course the challenges these ex-offenders face in our society, which is a lot. Now, many individuals in the society who are ex-offenders understand that to reinstate an ex-offender in our society it poses a significant global challenge. Yet, it is fundamental to reducing a lot of criminalities and crimes when it comes to the formation, going into these walls of closure and coming out and understanding, like Mr. Dominic mentioned, understanding that your freedom has been taken away. And of course, you have to have a focus when it comes to understanding that freedom and of course the things you enjoy you are deprived of. So to become an ex-offender having that mindset of change, that mindset of remorse, that mindset of repentance, and that mindset of making your life a better way forward. Now, of course, we know that in this study has made an original contribution, drawing on the mixed method approach that has come in for us to understand that attitude towards ex-offenders is regeneration, and whether there is a positive association between the level of education and the likelihood of accepting ex-offenders in the society. Now, this particular issue is something that poses a threat, because sometimes an ex-offender who is coming out of it, who doesn't have that stability, will think that going back into the criminality can cause that acceptance by his former people than the society in which does not want to give that accepting and open arms. All right, now, Mr. Dominic Bioko, are you with me now? Mr. Dominic,
can you hear
are you
me?
here? All right, I can hear you loud and clear. Now, thank you for joining in again, Mr. Dominic. Thank you.
Thank you for.
Now, I said, let's look at the government. We do not have these monitors or surveillances to keep a tab on ex-offenders to ensure that they have actually turned a new leaf. What ways do you think the government can come in to ensure that these ex-offenders do not go back into the criminality or being a menace in our society?
Well, the Nigerian system is not actually helping matters to tag or to track all these ex-offenders. Mm-hmm. But I know we can do better. We have what it takes to do that.
Okay.
In the sense that if you have today, we have what we call this BVN stuff that you can access numbers, phones, where you can track people with these devices, technology today. So it means you can equally do same. You can use those same facilities that we have already to track these people. And when you track them, you know what they do, where they go, who they mingle with, their places of work. That can be done if we really want to do it, it is doable and we have what it takes. So the government should be it should lie squarely on the shoulders of the government. And look, these guys are ex-offenders, but we need to monitor them. If you go to developed nations, you have parole officers who check people back to back. You pick up a job, they are there, they monitor you. That same process can be applied here. That aspect of it, to me, I think it lies solely in the hand of the government, and I know they can do it if they really want to do it.
Yeah,
they can do it just to monitor these people.
That's very correct. Now, let's look at friends of ex-offenders. Do you think the ties should be completely cut off when it comes to people that lure them into this particular act, peer pressures and all of that? Do you think cutting off the ties when they're out and they're now ex-offenders, should they cut it off completely?
Even as parents, when your kids are involved with some set of friends, and these friends tend to make them do things that are not correct, what do we normally say? Break your contact with this person. It's a natural thing. So if in a society, probably I was influenced by somebody, and that person, I've seen myself from a different light, and that person is still wallowing in that same process, it's behoove on me to break away. It's behoove on me to break away. Yes, sometimes you talk to them. You need to reach out to them to talk. Look, what we have done or we are doing or we used to do does not go well. Let's change our ways. If that person is still adamant to go the old way, it's expected of you to do what? To break away from such a person.
Exactly.
Because you don't want to get yourself involved again to this same mess.
Yes, exactly.
Messy, you want to go back. No, it doesn't make any sense. But you should be able to talk to your peers if they are the ones that lure you into what you are doing. You can only talk to them. If they are not willing to change, you move on. You move on. If you know your past, what you just experienced was not proper, break away. It's allowed.
All right, Mr. Dominic Bioko, thank you so much for being a part of Insight today. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us, and thank you for informing us when it comes to reinstating ex-offenders. Your thoughts. Thank you so much for being a part of the program.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And of course, that's a wrap on the program Insight today. But I will leave with this note. Understand that ex-offenders in Nigeria face various challenges when reintegrated into society. Some common challenges include societal stigma, difficulty finding employment due to their criminal record, lack of access to housing, limited support systems, and potential mental health issues resulting from their time in prison. Now, these challenges can make hard for ex-offenders to rebuild their lives and may contribute to all of these issues that I have just mentioned. But as a society, there is something called giving hope to the vulnerable, lending a helping hand and ensuring that and knowing genuinely that these individuals have changed. Ex-offenders are humans, and of course, transition back into society could be difficult, but we as a society can help build, and forgiving is all that matters. Thank you all so much for being a part of Insight today. I am Jumai Manson. See you same time tomorrow. Bye-bye.